All right, we're getting started here, making sure the stream is getting up. Welcome to Advancement Tech. So this week, we're going to be talking about sharing on Facebook. So I wanted to let you know that if you want to get notifications of the weekly shows of Advancement Tech, just feel free to visit advancementforum.com/episodes, and you can fill in your email address here and subscribe to get what the recorded versions of Advancement Tech episodes are, as well as mention of the future ones that are coming up. Now, to go ahead and get started, go ahead and get this going here. So we are live on YouTube, so chat is available. You will need to be signed up to YouTube to be able to chat there. So if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to ask them via chat, and I will consult that and look at it. So Advancement Tech basically is a technology show that looks at things related to advancement, fundraising, and nonprofits and the technology used in them. So this week we're going to be talking about sharing on Facebook and actually other social media such as LinkedIn and Twitter and things of that nature. So we'll go ahead and get started. So first of all, welcome. Thank you for coming. A little bit of background about myself. I'm going to be covering that. Doing about 15 to 20 minutes of education and then following up with a Q&A. And also, if you have any difficulties hearing me or something's wrong with the chat, please go ahead, excuse me, not chat, but with the live stream, please go ahead and mention that in the chat and I will take a look at it. All right, so who am I? My name is Preston Jameson. I've worked at 2 different universities over the last 12 years. Or not the last 12 years, over 12 years. I oversaw development advancement services there. I have founded a company that developed a product called Advancement Forum that does online giving and event registration. So let's talk about sharing on Facebook. So sharing your content on Facebook. So basically, it's easy to make a post on Facebook. It's very easy to do text. You can now just share a photo or do videos. So that's pretty easy to set up. What I'm going to be talking about here is when you're actually creating links to your site or to your website. So if you have an audience on Facebook, generally you're going to want to drive them to your own website for some purpose, maybe have them fill out a form, or basically you don't want to be necessarily captured by Facebook. You probably want to have your own hub, as it were, of information on your own site and email addresses to be able to email out and communicate to your constituents. So I'm going to talk about when you share something on Facebook back to your site, how do you get it to look the best? So that's what we're going to cover here. So the pages that you choose to share on Facebook, they need to support being able to be shared on social media. So for Facebook embedding links, or for sharing links on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, they use special tags called Open Graph Markup to be able to distinguish what this page is about, descriptions about it, maybe the author and images associated with it. And it basically instructs Facebook how best to share it on their platform. Okay, so what is this Open Graph protocol? So this is a set of, they're called meta tags that you put in the head of your HTML page. Now, your content management, let me say this first, is that it was a standard developed by Facebook. So, but a lot of other vendors, such as LinkedIn, uses it. Twitter uses it, but they have some of their own method of tagging what you tweet out as well. But they follow the Open Graph protocol, and even Instagram, of course, owned by Facebook, follows it. But it's kind of a standard that most social media companies are following. So now I should mention that most content management systems, or if you have a website that's being managed, or even WordPress, they have a way to set up the information in using this Open Graph protocol to be able to share it so it looks at the best on Facebook. But I'm going to go into some of the different settings you can make to make sure that it looks well. But there may be some settings in your CMS that you can set these to get it to look exactly the way you want. All right, so let's take a look at the Open Graph protocol. Okay. So when you're talking about sharing on the web, and particularly sharing links, this is an article, and I'm going to share all the articles that I'm going to be discussing here on the show notes for this page. So you can visit advancementforum.com/episodes to be able to get that. And it's also in the show notes of the YouTube video. So first it talks about links, and it says some of the prerequisites are the Open Graph markup, which is exactly what I was talking about. And they have links to 2 other guides, a webmaster's guide and a sharing best practices. So those are here. So this is a webmaster's guide, and it talks about the Open Graph markup. So this is the standard to be able to give a title, description, and then what image is going to appear when you share a link on Facebook. So this is what the tags look like. They are meta tags in HTML, and they have certain properties. So for example, OG means Open Graph, and then this defines the URL that you share. This defines the type, such as article, which is what I tend to use, the title of what should appear, the description, which is what shows below it, as well as an image if available. Now it goes through down here and gives you more descriptive and even has links. So for example, when you're talking about the type, there's actually a list of reference types here. So there's a link down here where you can see available types. I typically just use article. So these are some of the basic tags that you can add to define the Open Graph markup to be able to share your web pages on Facebook so they look their best. Now looking at the best practices, one of the things that you need to take into account, they mention a few more things. So the first, of course, is using the proper Open Graph tags. And again, they give examples of the best use case for it. But also the Facebook crawler. This is the piece of software or the program that Facebook uses to actually look at your web page and scan it. So the crawler needs access to your web page to do it. So if you have like a development environment that's not available to the public internet, you're going to want to use a public version when you're trying to diagnose pages or share on Facebook, because the Facebook crawler is actually accessing your site to get these tags. So when you share something on Facebook, it actually looks at the web link you're sharing in order to generate the share that you see here. Now, in addition to setting up the Open Graph tags, the other consideration you want to do is with regard to image sizes. And I'll get to that in a second here. But let's take a look at what a page looks like. So I'm going to go into this page here, and I'm going to look at the page source. So if you've looked at the first episode of what is HTML, that'll help you kind of understand what's going on here. But basically this is an HTML document. I'm just looking at the source code of this page. And in the head area is where the meta tags are. And you can see that the Advancement Forum website has defined these Open Graph tags, the URL, which is the exact page that it's sharing, the type, which is defined as article, the title that we want to appear in Facebook, which is the title of the web page itself as well, the description to share on Facebook, and then also the image. And this is the URL to the image that we want to be shown in Facebook. Now there's 2 additional settings here, OG:image:width and height. What this does is it enables Facebook to immediately share a well-formatted image, because what they mention in the best practices, they talk about pre-caching of images. So what they say here is, quote, when content is shared for the first time, the Facebook crawler will scrape and cache the metadata from the URL shared. The crawler has to see an image at least once before it can be rendered. This means that the first person who shares a piece of content won't see a rendered image. So this can be kind of confusing. So what ideally you want to do is be able to have your images shared the first time that it's shown. Now, they say there's two ways you can do this. One is to pre-cache the image with a sharing debugger, so we're going to look at that in a second. The other way is to use the exact meta tags that I was looking at before, defining the image width and the image height. If you specify those, as I have here, what the image width and the height is, it will automatically show that image the first time it's shown. So I highly suggest you define this in your content management system, your website, so that you don't have to worry about the image not appearing the first time when you share something on Facebook. Okay, so getting back to the images for a second here. So in terms of preparing images, the suggested ratio on many social media sites is basically a 2-to-1 ratio, about twice as wide as it is tall. And they use 1.9.1 ratio to 1. So for example, this could be 1200 pixels, or how many dots across in 627 down. It could be 1080 by 565 pixels, and that's another way to do that ratio. Now, I've used a 2-to-1 ratio, and it still works just fine. But that is the suggested ratio that you can use. And you can also use 1-to-1. That will, of course, give you square images. Now, another recommendation Facebook does is that use a minimum width of at least 1080 for really high resolution pixels, but no lower than 600. Whereas LinkedIn recommends a 1200 minimum width. So that's just something to keep in mind there. Now, if we go back, and a lot of those recommendations come from the optimizing images to generate great previews, and they talk about using images that are at least 1080 pixels. And they recommend using 1:1 images in your ad creatives. But depending on kind of what you want to do, you can either do the 2-to-1 or the 1-to-1. Okay, so next best practice or recommendation is to take a look at what you're sharing using their sharing debugger. So what is that? So this is the sharing debugger. You have to be logged into Facebook to access it. And it's basically developers.facebook, and don't be too afraid by that because it's pretty easy to use this, the fact that it says developers, but it's developers.facebook.com/tools/debug/sharing, and I'll include, of course, the link in the show notes. But you put the URL in of the content you want to share on your website, and click the debug, and it will render out what Facebook sees. So the crawler is going to go out, look at the web page on your website, and tell you what it's pulled back. And it will give you, if you have any errors in your Open Graph markup or any warnings, it will put them in there. Like, for example, this says missing properties. The following required properties are missing, and the Facebook app ID is missing. However, that's not really necessary. I could put that in if I chose to, but it still works just fine because it's just a warning. It tells you the last time it was scraped, what the fetch URL is. It gives some information with regard to how many likes, shares, and comments that have happened, what it will actually look like. Now, one thing I have noticed with the sharing debugger is that at times it does appear slightly off here. Like you can see this little, it's not quite on the edge there, but when you actually post it to Facebook, when you look at it, it's perfectly fine. And it gives all the different tags that are shown here, so you can take a look at what Facebook is seeing and able to read from your web page. So this is a tool you can use to make sure that your content looks the best when you're ready to share your links on Facebook. Now, this is for Facebook, but of course there are other social media sites, and they have their own equivalent of the sharing debugger, so you can use these as well. One is LinkedIn. Now, they don't call it a sharing debugger, they call it their post inspector. And again, you need to be logged into LinkedIn to use this tool, but basically you just paste a URL in, click inspect, and it will show you this is how the content will look like when it's shared on LinkedIn. And it gives you some of the different information that it's pulled out from what you've specified in your OG meta tags. So this is one tool you can use to understand what your content will look like. And even Twitter. So Twitter offers something again, not a sharing debugger, not a post inspector, but a card validator. So they use the concept of cards when you have tweets. So basically, you have to have a Twitter account and be logged in, but you can go to this URL, paste in the URL from your website, and it will show you how it will share this Twitter card. Now, by default, Twitter will normally share a 1x1 square image if all you're using is open graph tags, at least to my knowledge, that's the case. However, they have their own set of meta tags that you can use. And I've actually added to this page a special meta tag. Again, this isn't part of the Open Graph protocol, but it's something Twitter specific. So when they scan your website and look at the page, they're going to look at this Twitter card specification and see you want a large image. So that is basically essentially a 2x1 image. And it will give you this large Twitter card, as it were, whereas by default it's a 1x1 image here. So I just wanted you to be able to see the differences between those. Okay, so that's pretty much. So that was a little quick this week. My apologies. I'm actually getting over a cold, but that's pretty much how to best share your content on social media sites, predominantly Facebook, as well as LinkedIn and Twitter, and other social media sites such as Pinterest have their own way of doing things, but a lot of them are using these Open Graph, the Open Graph markup, the Open Graph protocol, to be able to read your website to best display what you're sharing on social media. So if you're having any problems with that, definitely check out the Facebook sharing debugger, the LinkedIn post inspector, or the card validator for Twitter to make it look its best. Now, does anyone have any questions at this time? So feel free to post in the chat. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And while we're doing that, or while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to take a look at something real quick here. Okay. All right. So in terms of upcoming shows, we have chatbots in nonprofits. So this is, what are chatbots? How can they possibly be used in nonprofits? And in what cases do they work? In what cases don't they work? So this may not have as much educational content, but maybe a fair amount of the advice type content with regard to using them. So that is scheduled for next Friday, March 1st at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. After that, I'm still planning out what show we're going to do next. So I would be happy to hear what you would like to learn about next. Feel free to leave a comment in the YouTube videos, or if you're getting this via the email notifications that you can get by putting in your subscription information here, feel free to reply to that email and let me know kind of once you're signed up, reply to email and let me know what you would like to see next in an episode of Advancement Tech. All right, we don't have any other questions at this time, so I'm going to go ahead and close out. Again, thank you for looking at this content. Again, if you want to receive notifications, just go to, you can either go to advtech.tv or go to advancementforum.com, click on show, and you can enter your email address here to subscribe to our newsletter. Or you could also choose to subscribe via Facebook, and we will go ahead and notify you of any new episodes that are coming out. Apart from that, I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you next Friday.